Well, welcome everybody tonight once again for our monthly meeting of SCAFI, Southern Cross Alliance for Israel. It's great to have you with us once again from the north to the south. So I can see people up in Cairns in the north, right down to where I am in the southern tip of Tasmania, and a few of our friends in New Zealand and a few of our friends in Perth and across the East Coast. Wonderful just to have you with us once again to share this evening. And as usual, it's been a big month of what has been happening in and around Israel, and great to see some of our good friends, our committee members are with us from all the different partnering Jewish and Israeli and Christian organisations that partner with SCAFI and our friends in different places. So just a wonderful time to be together to share. We've got some great guests tonight. And as usual, I'm going to hand across to our founding rabbi, Rabbi Isaac Rosenberg, who is going to do his usual welcome and introduce our first guest. Over to you, Rabbi.
Thank you so much, John. I begin this evening's introduction, unfortunately, with a heavy heart. Even though, as you know, as Jews, Orthodox Jews, we don't use mobile phones on Shabbat, but unfortunately, bad news has a way of finding us. And I think it was 2 weeks ago on a quiet Shabbat morning, as I entered the synagogue to pray, I was met with the chilling news that there had been an attempted arson attack on the East Melbourne Hebrew congregation, one of the city's oldest synagogues, where my colleague, Rabbi David Gutnick, is the rabbi. Then shortly afterwards, we learnt of yet another disturbing assault on our community. 20 radical pro-Palestinians stormed into a popular Israeli-themed restaurant in Melbourne CBD, overturned tables, terrified diners, shouted anti-Semitic slogans as they vandalized the venue. In both of these cases, Jewish Australians were simply living their lives, observing Shabbat, sharing a meal, and were targeted for no other reason than their identity. Over these past 2 years, Australia's image as a tolerant, diverse and welcoming nation has been deeply shaken, so much so even while fighting a war for its own survival, the Israeli government felt compelled to urge the Australian government to protect its Jewish community. And this should alarm every decent Australian. Australia and Israel share a proud and meaningful history. In 1917, the Lighthorse Brigade liberated Beersheba, paving the way to Jerusalem. In 1947, Australia's Foreign Minister, the great Doc Everett, a Labor minister, chaired the UN committee that recommended the partition plan, and Australia became the first nation to vote in favour. After the Holocaust, Australia welcomed more survivors per capita than any other country. My own parents, Holocaust survivors, arriving here in the 60s, fleeing the hatred of Europe, my mother described it as arriving in paradise. For decades, Australia stood on the right side of history, advocating peace in the Middle East while affirming Israel's right to exist and defending her place as the region's only liberal democracy. On a personal note, I remember the deep friendships that my mentor, Rabbi Groner, of the Yeshiva Centre shared with many Labor leaders, particularly the late member for Melbourne Ports, Clyde Holding. But today, something has changed. Australian political leaders have become increasingly critical of Israel, both at home and on the world stage, abandoning bipartisan principles that had held firm for generations. Invariably, as an Orthodox Jew, as a rabbi, people ask me, How is the Jewish community holding up? And my answer is the same. We are a resilient people. We have endured centuries of persecution and hatred. We have not only survived, but we have thrived, and so we will. But then I continue. My deeper concern is not only for the Jewish community, but for Australia itself. This once great country, a land that prided itself of giving everybody a fair go, is now witnessing the flames of hatred burning on our streets. I saw it with my own eyes in November 2023, our synagogue being forcibly evacuated during the Friday night Shabbat service as a pro-Palestinian mob marched towards the park opposite the shul. I then heard the chants, death to the IDF, globalize the Intifada, from the river to the sea, and similar obscene language. All this as the police stood by and did nothing. These are not slogans of justice. They are calls for the annihilation of Israel and the Jewish people. Today, the fabric of Australian democracy is fraying. Our shared Judeo-Christian values of decency, fairness, mutual respect are being trampled upon. What was once unthinkable, open displays of anti-Semitism in broad daylight, are now becoming frighteningly common. Today, more than ever, we need courageous leadership. We need leaders who can distinguish between a democratic ally that upholds our shared values and those who seek to destroy them. We need leaders to recognize that these chants are not harmless slogans. They are genocidal enactments, and history has shown the deadly consequences of ignoring such language. But I think what we need today, more than anything else, we need you. We need you. We need every decent Australian to raise their voice, to stand firm and to speak up. Edward Burke's timeless warning remains true. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to remain silent. This is not a time for silence. This is a time to speak up with courage, with clarity, and with conviction. So the Jews of Australia can live in peace, practice their ancient faith, and raise their children in safety and freedom. So let us now pray together that this country remains true to its creed, a beacon of tolerance and opportunity, where religious freedom is protected and where our Judeo-Christian values remain the foundational bedrock of this great nation, Australia. We're privileged to have the Rebbetzin Rachel Gutnick of the East Melbourne Hebrew Congregation join us this evening. Originally, her husband, the Rabbi David, was supposed to share with us the thoughts of what happened on that terrible night, but he was called off for army duty, as he is a chaplain in the Australian Army. But he said to me, Yitzchak, you have nothing to worry about. My wife can far surpass me in everything that she does. And I also want to acknowledge Michael Scott, who is somebody who is not remaining silent, that will speak on not only in the second half of the program this evening, but he'll be coming to Central Shul this Shabbat in Caulfield. So if I could hand it over to you, Rebbetzin Rachel.
Okay. Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. You'll let me know if there's any tech issues, and I will see if anyone in my house can help me because I'm not very tech savvy. But thank you so much for having me. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Your group does tremendous work for which we are very grateful. And Rabbi Reisenberg, everything you've said tonight really resonated with me about the way we feel in this country as Jewish Australians, and about our resilience and about our strength, and also about our gratitude for all those who do speak up. We notice it, we appreciate it, and it means the world. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to take you back a little bit to tell you the story about what happened to us and what our response is to the attack on our beloved synagogue. But first, I want to just give you a brief rundown about the role of East Melbourne Synagogue in how it plays with the Jewish community and even with Australian history. Our synagogue, our congregation dates back to the 1850s, so it's quite iconic and has been part of Melbourne for a very long time. And it has always attracted very key community members. And in fact, the bulk of the Jewish community used to live in the city and its surrounding suburbs in Carlton back in the 1800s. And so this synagogue was the center. It was the hub for Jewish life and very important part of Australian life. We've had very important members like Sir John Monash had his bar mitzvah at our synagogue. And actually, a lot of people in Melbourne can trace themselves back to something at East Melbourne Synagogue. I met a woman in the park the other day and she was in her 70s and she told me she was a flower girl at East Melbourne Synagogue when she was 10 years old. So a lot of people have very fond memories and connections with that synagogue. In our foyer, we actually have a roll of honor highlighting all of the members who served in the First World War at that time. And then there's a little mark next to the names of the members who very sadly never made it back after that war. So there's been a lot of contributions made by our congregants to Australia and to the world at large, and we always do acknowledge that. Our synagogue is a very centrally located one. It is in what we call the Faith Precinct of East Melbourne. There's lots of other places of worship around, lots of churches. And so we're very accessible. So people will often come by, school groups or tourists, and they'll kind of, be checking out the different heritage listed buildings in Melbourne or the places of worship. And they find solace in coming into our doors in this beautiful building and just taking a few moments to reflect and see some of our history, connect, whatever it is that they want. Our doors are open, and it's an important thing that we do for people. My husband also is he's got very good relations with all the different ministers of different churches around. I'll get more into that soon, but we do feel like we're kind of like the light on the Eastern Hill. It serves an important purpose, and people do come and see us as a safe haven. We welcome people from all walks of life. Jewish travelers will sometimes seek us out, especially for Shabbat if they're looking for a service or a Shabbat meal. We get university students. Often they're here on exchange from different countries, and they want to connect to their Judaism or just see some of the community, and they'll join us. And because we're also located next to so many hospitals, sometimes we'll have family members of people who are in hospital come in for a prayer, for some solace, or sometimes there's good news. And if somebody's having a baby, that's the best. And then they can come and join our service or whatever is happening and, be close and connect in that way. We've never considered ourselves to be at risk or a target for anything. Our doors are open. We welcome everybody. People sometimes with mental health issues will come in, just anyone really. We're open, and we want to be a warm and welcoming space for people. So my family and I, we've tried different things, but for now we live in the Jewish area of Melbourne, in the Jewish suburbs, the southeastern suburbs. But for Shabbat, every Friday we move to the city, and my husband will run services there, and we host Shabbat meals for visitors, for travelers, for tourists, and for some locals. So a few weeks ago, it was a Friday, as usual, and we prepare everything. I do all the cooking at home, and we do all the shopping, and we come with our kids, and we get to the synagogue in time for Shabbat. We set everything up, we light the Shabbat candles, and then open the doors for the service. The service was well attended, and then after the service, some of the congregants leave. They go home to their own dinner, and then some stay with us for dinner. That's how it works every week. So we close the doors at the front, and everybody goes to the back, to the rear hall of the synagogue to have our Shabbat dinner. So it starts off with a kiddush. My husband makes a blessing over a cup of wine, and we start our meal. We have entree, and everyone's in a really good mood. It's a lovely atmosphere. We have around the table visitors from Israel. We have a family from Canada with Moroccan background, a guest from Germany, a few locals from East Melbourne, different parts of Melbourne, around 20 people in total, including children. We have our entree, and everyone's singing some traditional Shabbat songs, when all of a sudden we hear the doorbell ring. So because the doors are closed, people do sometimes ring the bell. Generally, people book with us so we know who's coming, but it's very often that people will just knock on the door, or if they see the doors open, they'll just come in or ring the bell and want to have a look around. Nothing untoward about that. I had one of my children situated right in the front of the synagogue near the front doors. We were in the back hall, but we can hear the doorbell and we can see on the camera what's going on. My son at the front, child, thankfully didn't just open the door, which, we're pretty used to doing it. He looked at the camera and he felt like something wasn't right, and he just waited for my husband to come. My husband came down to open the door, and then at that point, we already hear bangs and we see smoke coming through, and my son can see fire underneath the door. Basically, this man just set fire to our synagogue. It was all very chaotic suddenly, and my kids were, and other people's kids were just playing in the sanctuary or near the front. So we kind of tried to get everybody to the back, and my husband tried to get a fire extinguisher, but smoke was just filling up really fast. So we all go to the back, and luckily we've put in some extra security measures, and we have a back exit now, which we didn't used to have. So I open the back door and I tell all my guests, don't worry, we have a way out if we need. It was very unclear what was happening, and I didn't know where the threat was coming from. I mean, I knew it was at the front, but I didn't know if we were surrounded or if there were other people coming, and is it safe to go out? Is it better to wait inside? All a bit unclear. Luckily, I heard the sirens very, very quickly. The fire department had been alerted by some passerby outside, and they're very close. They're literally down the block from us. So they were there within minutes. They got the fire out really, really quickly, and we were just all in shock. Like, what is this? Like, how could it be that somebody would deliberately, do a fire like this? It was very, very unsettling, to say the least. Police came right away, as well as members of CSG, of the Community Security Group. They came by, and then it was out on the news really quickly. So people just in dribs and drabs started coming and gathering at the front. At that time, the fire was out, of course, and the fire brigade were working to get the smoke out of the building and to fan everything out. And they told us to just stay at the back, and it all unfolded from there. Pretty traumatic, completely unexpected. Yeah, highly, highly unsettling. And what followed after that was just every organization out there just wanted to reach out and see that we were okay and see that the building was okay. And politicians came and they tried to, kind of wanted to have meetings and see what the synagogue is doing, and express their concern. I hope that that expression doesn't just remain in words and that things do change in action. But what struck me and what I keep coming back to for myself is just the gratitude that the outcome wasn't as bad as it could have been. And I don't want to dwell on that thought, on what could have been, but we know that we are very, very lucky that just so many things just joined together, that my son didn't open the door to somebody who could have come in and done more damage, God forbid, or that a passerby called the fire department and that they came so quickly, and everything kind of, all the responses and all the factors aligned, that the fire didn't spread to the carpet, God forbid, and move quickly. So all in all, we're shaken, but we're okay. And we really just want to focus on that gratitude. Um, talk a bit about people's response to all that. People just came from everywhere, people who lived nearby. One of the first visitors actually to come by and check on my husband was the vicar, Father Michael from the Anglican church just across the road from us. He was there first thing Saturday morning, um, showing support, and people from the different churches have reached out. The Archbishop has reached out to my husband, the Catholic Archdiocese, and your group as well has reached out. And it's been really, really comforting and heartwarming to see how many good people are out there and how many people really do care and show their solidarity, because you just feel like, how is this happening? And you feel kind of so isolated, I guess, when an attack like this happens, that you're targeted, but seeing the outpouring of support has just been like a huge hug for us, and it's really carried us and been a source of comfort. Um, the following day, Saturday, at our Shabbat at our synagogue, there was press outside, and every Jewish organization was coming in, and anyone who's been connected to the synagogue, people we met years ago, people came from near and far to come in and participate in that service. And the highlight of that service was that we have a family at our synagogue who were going to celebrate the birth of their new baby boy with us. Their child was around a month old, and this was the first time they were bringing him to synagogue. And it was just so lovely to have that to have that time to focus on joy and celebration. And my husband, in a sermon, spoke about how this is exactly what we do when we're faced with darkness that's creeping in and coming out to us. The way we fight it is not just with, fighting it with a stick or screaming, or we just increase in light. Because if you illuminate, then automatically that darkness will be dispelled. So it was very much a focus on light. And how do we increase light? Well, we could do acts of kindness, we can be joyous, and we celebrate life. So celebrating this new baby boy was really heartwarming and special, and felt like this is the antidote to all the troubles, and all the darkness. Just increase in light and celebrate. So that was really lovely. And then the rest of the week, we were also just meeting with all different people, and people were, showing their respects and putting flowers at our door and reaching out, which was beautiful. And so many people said to us that they want to attend Shabbat the next week. Now, we usually get 20, 30, maybe 40 people on a Shabbat. But as the bookings were coming in and people were showing their interest, we were like, okay, this is gonna be big. We're having hundreds of people now. So my husband got a acclaimed cantor to come and lead the service on Friday night and make it really special. And then people wanted to stay for dinner. Now I'm watching the numbers come in, and I can cook for 20 to 40 people, but once it hit 70, we were like, okay, we need a caterer. And then we realized that our hall at the back of the synagogue actually cannot accommodate these numbers. And so, in a very fortunate twist, we reached out to the Anglican church across the street, who have been amazing, and they have a community hall. And they said, you know what, let's use that hall for our Shabbat dinner. So it was a really beautiful show of friendship and support. And some of their priests and different ministers came to attend the Friday night service, where we had hundreds of people, and yes, armed guards at the door and top security and police patrols and all that. But when you came into the doors, you just felt that you could breathe and relax and enjoy this solidarity and the comfort and the prayers. And it was a really special feel. And then after the service ended, we locked up and we all crossed the road and safely entered the Anglican church, and were able to have a beautiful catered Shabbat dinner over there. And I was at the head table with Mother Kara and Father Michael, and it was really special. It was really special to just see all that coming together. Everyone felt very warm about everything. Obviously, very, very horrible circumstances to bring us there, but we are so appreciative of everything that's come as a result of that. So, what we do now is that we focus, as I said, on hope. We don't just fall to despair and wring our hands. That's not going to help anything. We hope that the people who need to take action will take action. But from our part, the action that we can do is increase light, like I said. So when I had Shabbat candles being lit the following week, I had other women join me, and we kind of were like focusing on, we're doing our bit to just bring light into this place. We're going to continue enjoying our beautiful building, bringing more people in. And luckily, we've got a beautiful community, and just, I guess, doing what we can to strengthen our community and strengthen each other and come together for happy and positive things. And that's going to continue. We're planning a new building at the back, which has been in the works for years, but hopefully now with the momentum, we're going to actually get that going. Because we have some people that want to come to synagogue not for any religious purpose, but just to have a place to connect with other people and to chat and to relax and enjoy some food or whatever it is, just to have a place to belong to. And that's really important. So we're trying to grow our premises and increase in our programming so that we can accommodate that as much as we can. The phone's been ringing off the hook kind of since the event, and I've been getting messages that my husband and I both have not been so great at catching all of them or responding to all of them. At one point, my husband realized that the prime minister was calling him. His phone, the text message kind of comes up as someone's leaving a voice message, and he sees, "Hello, David, it's Anthony Albanese here." So he got that call. But I picked up the phone, and this woman who I didn't know was on the other line, and she was in tears, and she said, she was just calling the synagogue because she had heard what happened. And she tells me, "I don't want you to think that this is the feeling of mainstream Australia. It is not. We are with you. We are so appalled by everything happening, and we want these things to stop. And we want you to know that it's not everyone, like we are with you." And I found that so moving that someone who doesn't know us, doesn't know the synagogue, isn't Jewish, made that effort to kind of reach out and show us that she's with us. And there's been a lot of that. And I think that's just a really, really crucial takeaway from all this. And I think the more that we can stand together, the stronger we are united, and the more we could increase light. And then automatically the darkness will fade away. So thank you again for having me, and thank you for allowing me to share my message. Thank you. And if you have any questions or comments,
No, that's wonderful. Thank you, Rachel. That's just a wonderful story, a story of witness, a story of light and love, and that's what it should be. So we just thank you for coming on and sharing that part. I'm sure it encouraged a lot of people. And, you know, being ex-Melburnian, I know a number of Melbourne people who were there supporting, doing what they can, and we want to support and help the East Melbourne Synagogue grow and be the community centre that it was meant to be. And so that's just a wonderful thing. So we just want to say thank you for tonight. And regards to your husband, and I'm sure our rabbi will keep in touch with David to further our relationships as we work together with synagogues throughout Australia, through SCAFI and through the Australian Israel Allies Foundation, which I'll tell you a little bit more about as we go. But for tonight, just thank you. I think Rabbi's disappeared. He had another meeting he had to go to, so we will let him go to family matters. And thank you, Rachel. Stay on and listen to the rest if you can. But without going too further, we have another special guest with us, and I wanted to give him as much time as we could this evening to share his experiences. So Colonel Michael Scott and I have met on Zoom a week or two ago through mutual friends. I heard part of his story. He's one person who is standing up for Israel in a big way and has his own foundation, which I'm sure he'll tell you about as we go. But his experiences are just amazing, and he can probably talk on 4 or 5 different major topic points, from being in Gaza, the story of Israel, the story of Australian Defence Forces, where they were and where they are at the moment. So I think, Michael, we might just hand to you to share what you can for a period, and then hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A tonight. So for those who don't know how to do Q&A, there's a reactions button that you can put up your hand, and when the time comes, we can get you to unmute and ask questions of Colonel Michael Scott if you wish to. So that's sort of the plan for tonight. A bit different from what we normally do, but I thought the opportunity to have Michael with us and to share 1 or 2 of the points or the history or his story is extraordinary. So over to you, Michael.
John, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, can I get a quick thumbs up? Can you hear me? Am I coming through okay? Fantastic. Revitz and Goodnick, can I first say that I've been a guest in your shul. I'm not Jewish or Israeli, but I may as well be, because I am with you in good times and in bad for as long as it takes until we prevail. And just working through the last 20 minutes of the presentation, it's been a window for me of the last 21 months, the ecstasy and the agony, seeing the beautiful videos, the picture of a land I love, hearing Achenu, and then hearing your testimony has pretty much summed up the sinusoidal wave. And so as far as I'm concerned, your dear husband, Rabbi David, is my brother. You are my sister. And I'd like to extend that brotherhood and sisterhood to all of the wonderful allies on this call today. And I'm delighted that to see so many familiar faces, from Jim and Maxine to many other friends that I've met over the last 18 months. I'd like to do 3 things with John's permission. First of all, to talk a little bit about me, my connection to Israel, as well as the 2023 Foundation. I'd like to talk about 5 observations, and then I'd like to open up for questions. And for those that know me, they understand that on this topic in particular, I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles, And so, John, if you want to restrain me to allow about 10 or 15 minutes for questions, I'd be much obliged. Okay, I'm just going to try and share a screen now. Okay, can I get a thumbs up? Has that come through all right? Fantastic. Okay, so a little bit about me, and I need to put a disclaimer there. I'm speaking on behalf of the 2023 Foundation as the CEO and founder. One of the ways that the anti-Semites are attacking me is by ringing up my former employer, the Australian Army, to complain. I've never once suggested I'm an official spokesperson. I'm acting in a private capacity, but yeah, we all face rat bags in society that want to hit us in the kidneys. From left to right, I was given the great privilege and honour of speaking at an October 7 commemoration in Vaucluse, Sydney last year. October 7, the middle picture there is a picture of my combat team. It was my first deployment to Afghanistan in 2011. I was officer commanding B Squadron 3-4 Cav regiment as part of mentoring Task Force 3. And the picture over on the right was a bat mitzvah speech that a dear friend of mine in Israel asked me to give in uniform. Now, a little bit about me. I came from Queensland, born in Mount Isa, grew up north of Brisbane in a place called Narangba on acreage. Joined the army at 17, served in East Timor, Bougainville, Iraq, 2 tours of Afghanistan. I've been an ardent Zionist since my early 20s when a mentor suggested, Michael, as part of Israel's wars, read about, as part of your professional development, read about Israel's wars. But it was really cemented when I had the wonderful privilege and honour of living in Jerusalem from July 2019 through to September 2021. I'll deep dive into that in a second. But in terms of my motivations, I'm a father and I'm a humanist. That's my family on the left, my wife, Tresina, and our Israeli family, 5 kids. I got it right the second time. My 2 biological kids are on the right, Georgina, 20, and Ashton, 14, with Tresina's 3 kids on the left. And many of you may know a wonderful man. David Hurley was my brigade commander in the late 1990s, and we've crossed in our careers a number of times. And that was that image is where I was presented the Conspicuous Service Cross as part of the Australia Day 2023 Honours and Awards. From July 19 to September 2021, I was seconded to the United Nations as a senior unarmed military observer. I was responsible for 153 officers drawn from 27 different troop contributing countries, including from an Australian perspective, non-traditional partners like the Russian Federation and China. These are pictures in the middle, up in the Golan, looking east into Quneitra, Syria. And the picture on the right was up the top of Mount Hermon, looking into the area of separation. And the young lass that is pointing there was one of our valued observers from Nepal. The mission area of the United Nations True Supervision Organization, the longest UN peacekeeping mission that was established in the late 1940s, that Australia has been supporting since 1956, soon after Suez. I was headquartered in Jerusalem, and I had observers in Israel, up in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. And I was very fortunate to be one of only a handful of people on the planet at a given point in time to be able to go up through Rosh Hanikra to Nakora, east along the 130 kilometres from the shores of the Mediterranean up to the foothills of the Mount Hermon complex, up to Beirut, up the hills, down the other side through the Bekaa Valley, across east through the Masna crossing into Syria, all the way to Damascus, up and down either side of the area of separation in the Golan and Quneitra, all the way through from Eilat down to Sharm el Sheikh, up the other side of the Sinai Peninsula, under the Suez Canal and across to Cairo. It was like operating for 27 months in a history book. It was an extraordinary experience. From the left to the right, it's a picture of my wife and I, Dresina, in the King David Hotel. I met Sir Frank Lowy that evening. It was just before COVID. Coming further to right, It's a picture of me on a bike. One of the ways that I would medicate from working in the United Nations, which is quite dysfunctional in a number of respects. On Shabbat, where there was less traffic, I'd ride, and that's a picture about 2 miles to the west of the beautiful kibbutz at Iri. Just to the right there is a gentleman I consider my Jewish brother, Avi Segev, a secular Jew, a beautiful human being, a father of 4 daughters, lives in Rishon. We would ride most weekends, COVID permitting. As it happened, one of his daughters was meant to be at Supernova on that horrible evening in Australia. One picture to the right is my daughter Georgina, and so in 2023 I'd moved back to Australia, but my daughter Georgina, 18 at the time, does what girls of that age do: take selfies in the toilet with friends. Saturday, October 7 evening, Georgina was at a music concert in Australia at the same time that my WhatsApp was lighting up about what was happening to my friends over in Israel. And to say that I can empathize and relate is an understatement. Even now, 21 months after that horrible pogrom, someone who is very close to me, a wonderful Israeli friend by the name of Rafi Frank, who lives with his family up in the Hula Valley. That's a picture of me on the left after I'd completed an ultra triathlon in Israel the week before COVID. And on the right, tragically, Rafi's adopted son, Omer Nutra, a picture at Ben Gurion Airport. I've lived the sinusoidal wave of this dear family. It was not until December 2024 that the family had positive confirmation that Omer was murdered on the morning of October 7, 2023, and his body was taken as a hostage into Gaza. And Omer's one of the 20 soldiers, one of the 50 people that remain a hostage to this day. I think to understand the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, one thing I'd recommend to people is to read 2 seminal works that came out of the 1990s. One was the thesis that has been since disproven. I'm talking about End of History by an academic by the name of Francis Fukuyama, and the second one is an article that was developed into a book by Samuel T. Huntington, A Clash of Civilization and the Remaking of the World Order. The third recommendation I would put was Orwell's seminal work, 1984. And in my judgment, the only thing that George Orwell got wrong is he mistitled the name of his work. It shouldn't have been titled 1984. It was mistitled 2024 because we live in Orwellian times of gaslighting and projection, where otherwise reasonable, open-minded individuals are absolutely convinced, based on the nonsense they see on the national broadcaster and hear from the United Nations, Amnesty International, International Committee of the Red Cross, all of the failing institutions that have so disappointed us in the last couple of years. They're convinced that 2 + 2 = 5, and that picture on the right is a classic example of a modern-day blood libel, which happened a couple of days before that beautiful couple was murdered in Washington, D.C. And so if wonderful individuals listening into this call, if it's been a while since you've read Orwell's 1984, do please put it on your reading list in the next couple of weeks, because in my judgment, it will help us understand not only the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, but some of the ways that we can operate effectively to influence people, to help them understand and appreciate what we know based on our deep personal connection, not only to the land of Israel, but to Israelis. I had an opportunity to return to a land I love last September. It was in the first week of September, before Nasrallah was eliminated, when there was a real risk of missile attack from Lebanon as well as other places. I was very fortunate to be as part of an amazing delegation that comprised Colonel Richard Kemp, Natasha Hausdorff, Andrew Fox, and a number of other people. We had high-level briefings from the Israeli Defense Forces, Mossad, Shin Bet. We met with the Prime Minister, we met with the former Defense Minister, Gallant, and we went into Gaza with the IDF. We crossed into Gaza at Kerem Shalom, which is all the way south near the border with Egypt, and we went the 14 kilometers all the way to the Swedish village on the banks of the Mediterranean. And indeed, that picture was taken right over near the border and, of course, on the beach. We were able to look into some of the tunnels that the terrorists dug between Egyptian Rafah and Gazan Rafah. That particular tunnel on the left was large enough to drive trucks through. It came out in the aperture of a mosque, really troubling. Of the 14 kilometers, and when I was there, 200 tunnels had been discovered, and the Israeli Defense Forces were in the process of drilling 2,000 holes every 7 meters down beneath the water table, which is about 40 meters below the surface, in an effort to detect other tunnels. Some were as big enough to drive trucks through, others were the width of a human being, 40 meters down. They believe they got all the tunnels, but of course, in war, you can never be certain. And so, coming back to the work of my foundation, I'd seen violent Islamic militant fundamentalism up really close, particularly my tour of duty in Iraq and then 2 tours in Afghanistan. What I wasn't expecting was what we saw on the Opera House on the 9th of October. I saw that the next morning when I turned on the news, and that's when I looked at my wife. Wow, sweetheart, I can't be a bystander. I'm going to do something. My first efforts were a failure. I'd see on social media from people I went to school with 30 years ago, Brisbane Grammar School, posting from the river to the sea. And I direct message the individual, hey, mate, I saw your post. This is not what's going on. Do you mind if we have a chat about it? I've lived in Israel while seconded to the United Nations. Just wouldn't hear it. I got shouted at and cancelled by people that I thought were my friends that I've known the whole of my adult life. And so with those first failures, I sucked back into my tortoiseshell and I started thinking through what I could do to make a strategic difference, not only with my operations and my command of complex national and multinational forces. I've also worked as a program manager and program director of big complex programs within the Australian Defence Organisation. I read a lot of books, and I happened across an example in a Cyrus biography of the work of Senator J. William Fulbright, who at the end of the Second World War established the Fulbright Act and the Fulbright Scholarship to the effect of bringing 80 years later in the current 8,000 people from all over the world into US tertiary institutions, not only to educate, but build cross-cultural linkages, soft power. It's a bit like the Colombo plan that Australia did with the region, again, after the Second World War. And I thought that's a model that I can use to combat the world's oldest hatred in its virulent modern manifestation of the Jews being blamed for having a state, anti-Zionism as the shapeshifter that we're seeing at the moment of the world's oldest hatred. And the mission of my foundation is to combat anti-Semitism through lived personal experience, the vision being tomorrow's non-Jewish upstanders, not bystanders, setting myself the aspirational aiming mark of developing through a series of experiences tomorrow's Douglas Murrays, Richard Kemps, Erin Molan, Gemma Tognini, and Nova Peris. I'm not looking at competing with any groups in the Jewish community or the wonderful Christian Zionists that have been doing so much heavy lifting for so long. I think part of my unique value proposition is that I bring a level of lived experience as an apolitical military officer and veteran that is a bit of a unicorn, deep personal connection with Israel and Israelis from living there with my wife, and an absolute fire in my belly to build and bequeath a better tomorrow than a way our nation and indeed the Western civilization is currently pointing. Because I see with the foresight of knowing human history that what starts with the Jews never ends there. And I simply will not be a bystander. I will do everything in my power to build and bequeath a better tomorrow for my unborn grandchildren, because I see very clearly the way this is pointing. I might just hold it there on the 2023 Foundation and introduce 5 observations prior to some questions. Observation one, and this is paraphrasing my dear friend, the Reverend Mark Leach. We will win in the end. If we're not winning at a point in time, it's certainly not the end. Be strong, we will prevail. Observation two, there's a couple of big things that are happening at the moment where I think in our godless age, where many of our young have been looking at Greta Thunberg type creatures as a deity, we're seeing an improvement now, because Thunberg, when she was banging on about dangerous climate change, and I'm not a denier, I believe it's one of the top 20 issues that we're working through, but a number of people have seen with the advocacy of that dimwit on the ship and every time and since, that she is not the deity that a number of people previously believed. There's a level of awakening. And something I read about one of the arch atheists of our time, Richard Dawkins, about 3 months ago. Richard Dawkins said publicly he considers himself a cultural Christian because he would prefer to hear the church bells than he would the muezzin. I think that that's an acknowledgement that some of the values that we have, not we on this call, but we as a civilization have taken for granted, that is Judeo-Christian values, free market economics, the emancipation of women, the rule of law, that just doesn't happen unless we continue to work at it. And indeed, I think one of the challenges that we're facing is a number of otherwise sensible people believe that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, number one, I'm talking about safety and security and survival. People thought that that was something our parents and our grandparents' generations dealt with, and they got a bit of a shock. Indeed, Israel is clued in exactly as to what the stakes are. I think we're a couple of bounds ahead across the comfortable West. But we, in a business sense, are early adopters, and I'm in the business of speaking one-on-one to fast followers and the first majority, just completely ignoring the self-haters and the anarchists amongst us that might be very noisy but don't speak for the average Australian or the average Westerner. Meta trend 3. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and digital transformation. I expect that in the next 6 or so months, maybe the next 1 or 2 years, we will see a return to community and a return to Christian church and a return to community values when people just do not believe anything they see online. You may have seen some of those recent videos from Greta Thunberg in an embrace with Yahya Sinwar on the boat like a Titanic. I think in 6 months' time, we won't be able to visually tell the difference between fake and real. And I think the second order effect, which will be positive, is that people will just tune out something that they cannot trust. And I believe that there will be a return to community and personal interaction and leveraging off known sources of truth. And I think the wonderful heavy lifters across the Christian community that have never lost their faith and the Jewish community that have maintained customs and traditions literally for millennia will see a return. And I believe that many are well postured for that return and will all be the better off for it when it happens. Number 4, I think there was a miscommunication and understanding of Tikkun Olam. I believe that those that previously thought healing the world was looking at Greta Thunberg as a deity, they begin to have a revision. In a land where monsters exist, we've always been in a world where there are monsters, but we've grown accustomed, based on our wonderful life in Australia, that we've forgotten sight of that. I believe that one of the things we're seeing is when people come to kill us, we have a responsibility to rise and kill first. Now, that's not because we like it, but can we live in peace as defined by Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, or Islamic State? Absolutely not. So we defend our rights, we defend our family and our way of life, And I think that that's part of the paradigm that we will see going forward. It's my difficult judgment and conclusion formed from a study of history that we are not at nadir yet. Having just completed my third master's degree, both in Sydney as well as across in Manhattan at NYU Stern School of Business, I'm really troubled that our schools and universities across the West seem to be punching out social Marxists and trots at a rapid rate. In my judgment, it will get worse before it gets better. But even in these difficult times, we can look around. All of the fair weather friends have blown away, and we can look at who we can depend on and who we can burden share. And to the beautiful members of the Australian Jewish community or further afield that are listening in, from me to you, you are pointing in the right direction. It would be natural that some Jews in Australia may think everyone appears to hate us. We must be doing something wrong. Absolutely not. You keep being your beautiful selves. The challenge on us all is that we are pointing in the right direction. The question is, how much metaphorical burden can we put on our shoulders? And in my judgment, we should be taking it at marathon, not sprint pace. Number 5, pray like everything depends on Hashem. Act like everything depends on us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It's a great privilege and honor to dial into this amazing group. You are absolutely fabulous. It is delightful to consider a number of you close personal friends, and I'm looking forward to deepening the friendship with those that I haven't had opportunity yet to interact with personally one-on-one. I'm in Melbourne for about the next 5 or 6 days, normally in Sydney, but if there's anything that I can do with my objective and apolitical advocacy based on lived personal experience, not only in Israel, but previous war service and around the area, and even getting into Gaza and seeing with my own eyes the amazing work of the Israeli Defense Forces, all you need to do is ask. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I might hand back to John.
Thank you, Michael. Just you need to stop sharing now, and we'll go back to the gallery screen.
I'm having difficulty. Could the magic house elf that saved me before do it again?
Yeah, I think we've done it. All good, wonderful. We're back on gallery. All good. Thank you, Michael. That's you've covered a lot of different topics. I can see Hugh's got his hand up already. I invite others to put their hand up with the reactions button. But the work that you are doing, we're just we're aligned in what we're doing. And as I said to you last week, I can see we're going to be doing a lot of things together in the future with the SCAFI, which is what we're on tonight, and also the Israeli Allies Foundation and the caucus members, which I'll tell you a little bit more about before we finish tonight. But it's just been wonderful to get an overview of your life, your family, and how your heart is, and we would, I think, all be in agreement. Hugh, I'm going to invite you to open up with questions, and then for others who would like to ask a question, just put up your hand with the reactions button, and we'll go to you. Over to you, Hugh.
Hello, Michael. It was great to hear you tonight, and also to hear Rachel. And I found myself weeping during Rachel's testimony and talk. And I totally agree with you that, Michael, that we must reach out to the Jewish community and comfort them through this awful time in which our government really doesn't seem to care almost an iota. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that Richard Kemp, who you mentioned earlier and you've met, is a personal friend of mine. And we've made a series, and continuing, hopefully, to make a series called Whose Land? quite a few people on this call will know about it. It looks at the legitimacy of Israel in international law. And Natasha Hausdorff, who you also mentioned, she's also a friend of mine, and she's in it. And I'd love to get together with you while you're here in Melbourne, which is where I am, during the next few days when you're here. Now, Mark Leach is also in town, and he's speaking at a WITSO event tomorrow morning. I don't know whether you know about that, but I can't obviously divulge details over the internet about where it is, but if I can give you my phone number, which is 0493 212 712, I can let you know privately where it is, and I'll make sure that you can get in there. It's at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and Mark Leach is the guest speaker. I have met him personally, but and NAIN is a wonderful organization that supports the Jewish community. But I just wanted to say thank you for your talk. What more do you think we can do to actually put Israel's case before? Because the whole narrative at the moment is actually based on lies.
Yeah, it really troubling. And Hugh, it's a delight for me to meet you finally. I've seen Whose Land a number of years ago. Remarkable work. I didn't catch your phone number, but maybe John, you can message me Hugh's number.
Yeah, I
I
will.
would love
Yep.
to catch up with you over the next couple of days. Unfortunately, my program has been packed to the density of depleted uranium, and I've got another activity at 10 o'clock tomorrow, so I can't attend. But if I can pass on that my dear friend Mark and Margot Leach and their amazing daughter Freya are everything that you may believe. They're wonderful human beings, and they point in the direction that I believe we all hope our country will follow and assume. I think the reality is that we're in the business of influence, and we can only move at the pace that Stephen Covey would refer to as the speed of trust. And so I think we've got to be careful not to oversell, because we've got to allow people to come to us. And one of the ways that I'm looking at building allies and those that can empathize and relate is that I spend time talking with Christian Zionists as well as Jewish Zionists, and I ask them the simple question of all of your non-Jewish friends, who are the top 2 or 3 that in your judgment we may be able to nurture into tomorrow's non-Jewish upstanders, not bystanders, through lived personal experience in Israel. Now, even the best, say, Year 12 student that is wishing to be a general practitioner, we can't click our fingers or stick a USB-C RAM key in their ear and spit one of them out in 2 weeks or 6 months. It takes time to nurture through an undergrad degree, postgrad, intern, resident, on-the-job experience. It's a generational activity, and so I'm looking at starting with a referral through an experience, and it might be a placement in employment in Israel, or doing an undergrad short course or a master's degree. It might be a thematic visit, Christian Zionist group around Easter time period, veterans around Anzac Day in April, or Beersheba Day, 31st of October. There's many vectors of opportunity. And indeed, dear friends of mine that live in the Sydney community have a relationship with Keshet Ayalon, which is a beautiful kibbutz up near the border with Lebanon that's world-class orchestral music. And so when the circumstances allow, I think that there's a vector of opportunity to bring some of the creatives across there to find something that interests people. In my judgment, a love of Israel can't be taught, it's got to be caught. And I think one of the challenges that we're facing is that those otherwise sensible people who might only have an experience of Israel based on the nonsense they hear on the ABC, when they hear Tel Aviv, they may have a mental model of Mogadishu, Somalia, or Soweto. They can't empathize and relate. And so I'm in the business of planning and discussing and working through things while Israel is winning the war. And I think my unique value proposition is that I will do everything I can to build and bequeath something that helps Israel win the peace. And so, Hugh, the answer is yes in terms of strategic collaboration. And I look forward to catching up with you personally in the next couple of days while I'm down here in Melbourne.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Hugh. Hugh mentioned his friend, Colonel Richard Kemp. We're hoping to have him on either next month or the month afterwards as well, so to share some of his stories. But Hugh's been a great supporter and done wonderful work, and I will message you his contact numbers. Michael, you might, if you want to put your email address up on the chat, that might be for people who want to make contact with you. And also, we saw the slide of your foundation, which we want to support as well, because you're working exactly the same roadway that we are working on, so which is just wonderful. And just to bring the others up to date with where we're at as a body, SCAFI, Southern Cross Alliance for Israel, was loosely formed some 7 years ago with Rabbi Reisenberg and the Central Shul and some Christian organisation. It's grown over that time period to many Christian organisations and Jewish organisations. But again, until October last year, we were just a loose group of friends having a monthly Zoom and some live events, particularly with our good friend Amir Mammon, the ambassador. And I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. But what has happened since last year, we relaunched with the new chairman of the Israel Allies, Friends of Israel. We launched the Israel Allies Caucus in the federal government, with at that stage 38 members of the members of Parliament, upper and lower house and independents, who were supportive of Israel, with the view to helping them understand the truth of where Israel was at, its history, the difference between what the media were saying and what is really going on. And of course, we started to do that project and we were interrupted by the call of the new elections. We now have 30 of those members who still support Israel and its right as a nation. And we are going to Canberra next week on the 29th of the month to hold a cocktail party for those members that will be hosted by the Israel Embassy, Amir Mammon and friends, to help and introduce the Israel Allies Caucus and Foundation and our work against anti-Semitism. And you are going to be part of that at some stage, Michael. It mightn't be next week because you might be able to get to Canberra next week, but we were going to introduce you to many of those influential federal parliamentary people and indeed into the state members. Because if we want to see change, we have to have support from our influencers, as you've well said. And our influencers are some of our parliamentary and business people that we need to get to. And I think that question that you asked beforehand, tell me 3 or 4 of your friends that are non-supporters at the moment that we might be able to have an open conversation with, just to share, personal stories as you share your personal story of how and where you went to and the land of Israel, as I share mine. So, yeah, I'm just going to post in the chat the Israel Allies Foundation as well, and that if people want to support it, we are heading for DGR status in the next 3 months, and we are working to support mainly our influencers throughout Australia, which will be politicians and business influencers in essence, in helping them understand anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and where we're all going. So for all those who are with us, I see Morris Klein's been with us for many times over the months. He does a wonderful job of interviewing all sorts of Christians and Jewish friends, and I'm sure you've been on his show beforehand, as I have been, and Hugh has been. So, you know, we just thank you, Morris, from the bottom of our heart for what you are doing. And, you know, you're there with AJA and many other Jewish organisations, as many other Christian organisations, and we're just so very thankful. We've got time for 1 or 2 more questions, and Anna Berger.
Berger.
Anna Berger.
Shalom, Anna. I can see you. You're on mute.
Unmute. You got to unmute, Annabella, and if you're there. No, I haven't got you. Not unmuted yet.
There we are.
There you go.
I have one particular soapbox, and that is that I dislike the term anti-Semitism. And it gets thrown around a lot, but it really is very fundamentally anti-Jewish racism. And we have to call it what it is. Now, the far right, we have to write off. They're gone. They hate us. They'll never do anything that we can, you know, live with. But the far left hates racism. So if we take it to them in the right language, they can't run away. They are being racist. Anyway, that's my shtick.
Yeah, it's good point. Wonderful point. And wording and language is so important in how we share our story.
I remember you at Beersheba. At the light,
well,
I was there.
Wow. Okay. That's another
done
story.
I put together the exhibition at the Jewish Museum.
Wonderful. Yeah. Good to see you. Who else? I saw Gail had a hand up. Are you there? She disappeared. Let's go back to the gallery view. I think Gail had her hand up if she's there. She's disappeared. Anybody else got a question while we wait? Oh, Hugh's got another question. Over to you, Hugh.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, all good.
Sorry to come back again, but you and I were together a couple of weeks ago, John. And by the way, hello, Anna. Great to see you tonight. But John and I were together a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, one of our main concerns as we met together is that this two-state solution has become a sort of sacred cow, political sacred cow that needs to be slaughtered. And even our pro-Israel politicians here, like the Israel Allies Caucus, actually ideologically support this. Now, the same is true with the Conservative Party in Britain. My wife and I were still in Britain at the last election and were horrified by what's going on. But one of the things that John and I are concerned about, is there an alternative? And we believe that there is. It's something that has come up not prominently in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but it's something called the Emirates solution, which is a totally different idea to the two-state solution. It's whereby clan leaders in centers like Hebron, like Jenin, even Jericho, Ramallah, and they used to actually really run these communities before the days of Oslo. And is this an alternative that we can actually talk to our politicians about? Recently, I think it was week before last, 5 sheikhs in the Hebron area came out and said, we want to split from the Palestinian Authority, which is totally corrupt, and we want to actually govern our own people locally. We want to recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. And there's even talk about them joining the Abraham Accords further down the line. And anyway, John and I went through an interview that we shot some time ago with a man called Mordecai Kedar, who's met quite a few of these clan leaders. Is there an alternative to the two-state solution with which we can, and I'm thinking particularly of the Israel Allies Caucus, that we can educate our politicians with? Your thoughts on that, Michael?
It's a wonderful point, and I think it needs more explanation, Hugh. But Michael, you got a quick response to that? I mean, I think you need to see, because I sat with Hugh, you know, we had coffee and tea and cake, and you know, looked through the video of what he was suggesting, and for me, it made perfect sense. But I think we need to explore that. What's your perspective, Michael, on the two-state solution?
Look, one of the challenges objectively is that Hamas are honest in their Jew hatred. The Palestinian Authority are a little bit dishonest because they benefit from taxpayers' money and have for a long time lawfare and supporting terrorists that have blood on their hands. I was very interested to see that development as well, Hugh. I think that does point to a better tomorrow. But if I step out a level of granularity, there's only been 2 defeat mechanisms in the history of mankind that have actually worked. One is annihilation, the other is exhaustion. We can't create a desert and call it peace, so annihilation is out. Exhaustion, I think, points to part of the solution. And what I mean specifically is that the world's democracies must stop throwing good money after bad and funding radicalism. The Arabs in the Levant have been radicalized, including by our taxpayers' money, beyond historical precedent. If we think of the Vandals, the Huns, the Mongols, the Tatars, even the Hitler Youth, they weren't radicalized to the extent that the Arabs in the Levant have been radicalized in UNRWA schools to hate Jews. So there will be a period in time for de-radicalization. And so I think that the United Arab Emirates model is apposite for a couple of reasons, because there's a ministry of tolerance where Muslim Brotherhood is outlawed there as well. And I think that there needs to be a little bit more development of the options, but we may actually see within the envelope where I believe non-contiguous zones are being created, which may give peace a chance, and then that could allow for virtuous second-order effects in Judea and Samaria.
Yeah, we're in agreement. Lots more that we could expand on that, and it will be the subject of an ongoing discussion, Michael and Hugh. And I've asked Hugh to put together sort of a 10-minute promo when he has time to explain a bit more about that alternative and what that might look like, that we may be able to share with our politicians and the caucus members. And let me say to you that we're not just talking federally about members of parliament. We're going out to each of the states. So I was in South Australia 3 weeks ago. met with the Liberal whip and another young lady, Sarah Game, who has a Jewish, where they're joining the caucus. In Victoria, we are working with a couple of young people to come into the caucus. We will be travelling to other parliaments. Brisbane is open. Sydney will be meeting. Some of you will know that there is in September a mayoral conference on the Gold Coast from the 3rd to the 5th of September, which we will be attending as Israel Allies Foundation to meet with mayors and bureaucrats from across Australia. It's been totally funded by 3 Jewish organisations, so that mayorals and bureaucrats can hear some truths about what we're facing and the anti-Jewish, I'll just put it that way, feelings that have emerged across the land. So there are lots of things that we are working upon, and I just want to say thank you, Michael. Tonight, you're part of the brigade that's up the front, like Mark is. Mark's a good friend of ours as well, Mark Leach. I'll be meeting next week, again in Canberra, and we're working together from all fronts. So we work from crossing just the normal supporters of Israel, the understanding from churches, Jewish and family values, which Mark and Nain do, through to going through to the biggest influencers, and we must be able to get to the influencers in order to educate and to work with them through to, the schools and what we're doing with the schools. So, there are plans in place at the moment. Of course, all of us need funding. Your foundation needs funding. Israel Allies Foundation needs funding. So it's up to all of us to put our hands up and to support where we can. And whether it's $10 or $10,000, it doesn't matter. It's all part of the journey of us working together, Jew and Gentile, to combat what is happening in our nation. And, for those of you who are grandparents like I am, my concern now is for my grandchildren's future, the values and the morals that they're exposed to at the moment against how we were brought up. So we need help, and we need you standing with us. Kathy, I see you've got your hand up. We're a bit late tonight. We'll put you on to next time.
It's not a question. It's just to say that in the chat, I've put the link, a YouTube link to a very good interview that was done on JNS 10 days ago about the Hebron Sheikhs.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So please unmute. Say thank you to Michael. Don't know if Rachel's still there, but thank you, to hear the true story of the East Melbourne Synagogue was wonderful. Unmute, give yourselves a great clap, and we'll say good night.
Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Amazing.
Michael.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Thanks, Michael.
Thank
God
you.
bless you all.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
See you.
All the best.